If you hear me, I will hunt you down. I turn the world into a silent town. Barefoot walking, red lights glowing. A family hides, their survival showing. If you want to stay alive, you must keep the space. What film am I? And we'll come back with the answer to that, and we'll be talking about The Martian right after this.
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
Daphne, good to have you back again.
Hello.
Got any ideas as to what movie it was I was just referring to? It's from I want to say early 2000s.
I have no idea.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. I want to say it's like 2018, 2019. I don't know why I said early
really?
2000s.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. No?
I'm going to know it, aren't I?
Yeah. The movie's A Quiet Place.
That's like one of my favorite horror movies of all time. But when you said keep your distance, I was like, technically they just have to keep really quiet, so...
Well, it just says
that
keep
might
your
not be
space, not your distance.
Okay.
Keep your space. Just keep your space
Okay.
quiet. I'm assuming that's what that means.
You got me.
Yeah. So this week we're going to talk about The Martian. It was a movie that you had brought up a little while ago, and I had seen it when it first came out, but I haven't seen it since until I just revisited it, I guess this week. I remember not liking it that much, but after watching it, it was a great film. So, came out in 2015. It was released in the UK September 30th, in the US October 2nd. Runtime of 142 minutes. It was directed by Ridley Scott, starring Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Jeff Daniels. Had a budget of 108 million and a box office of 630.6 million. And this whole thing is based off a book by Andy Weir. Any thoughts on? Did you watch the trailer at all beforehand? I know
Yep.
I had mentioned it to you, and I forgot.
Yep. Yeah, I did watch the trailer, and I thought because of all the Andy Weir hype going on right now, it'd be pretty smart to do The Martian, and then So I thought it was a pretty solid film.
It's all right. You can say it next week. We're going to do Project Hail Mary. So
Yes, I didn't know if that was spoilers or not.
nah, it's fine. So, yeah, it's. I'm not even sure where I want to start with this because I mean, I suppose we could roll right into the opening scene. They're already on Mars, so it's not like it's like a trip that has to be made. They're just doing like geological surveys or getting samples and stuff. And a massive dust cloud storm is on the horizon. It's on their way. They knew about it, but they got updated information saying that, yeah, this is going to hit you guys a lot sooner than we thought. What do you think of that opening scene?
So, I do want to preface pretty much every opinion I have on this film. I did read the book, and I've read both The Martian and Project Hail Mary. So, and I've taken a lot of notes. But yeah, I thought the opening was pretty strong. It's exactly how the book pretty much opened. Well, yes and no, but it left you wondering, oh my god, what the hell's happening? So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was I like the cast. I liked how everything kind of transpired. I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about Mars or astrophysics or anything like that, or how the planet actually is. So obviously, I have to rely on how Andy Weir portrays everything in the book, and then obviously gets translated to the movie. Yeah. From what I understand, it's the most realistic thing that, at least in 2015, was the most realistic movie that NASA said had been out to that point, which says a lot.
The book was praised for being a work of fiction, yet being very scientifically sound. So the scientific theories and the science behind what he does on Mars to survive is very accurate and sound, while also being a work of fiction. So
yeah, I know NASA wrote at least 50 pages of the script, so that helps with the authenticity of the work, right? So, yeah, I guess from the accident, obviously, if you haven't watched this film yet, go ahead and stop this this recording and go watch it and come back and listen or whatever. But yeah, so the only thing that's different that I can tell in the opening scene, so obviously, drawing a blank on his name, Mark Watney, sorry.
Yep.
He gets hit by, during the storm, the stuff's getting thrown around, and he gets hit by an antenna that comes loose, and it hits his comms, it hits his life monitoring thing, and it impales him, and the rest of the crew thinks that he's dead, and he gets left behind. That wasn't in the book. Him getting hurt was he had bumps and bruises, but he never got impaled by the antenna. Is that correct?
He got I guess impaled would be the correct term. Did it go all the way through him or puncture any organs or anything like that? No, but it did puncture his suit, which then caused him to start bleeding, which is the whole reason why he's still alive, because on Mars, the gravity and pretty much just the atmosphere made the blood congeal, which patched his suit. So him bleeding was the only reason why he survived. So he also did stitch himself up in the novel as well, but it punctured his suit more than like impaled him. I wouldn't say he was walking around with like a thing stuck in his chest like this. It was more just like it hit him and it caused him to bleed.
Interesting. Yeah, because it was the second time I watched it, like obviously second time, this time around the second time, whenever he went to stand up, the antenna is still attached to the satellite dish, and that to me, I thought, okay, that should have released more pressure from his suit. That should have anything that had it's the temperature of Mars that would help to freeze the coagulating blood. All that would have broken. It's one thing to just be laying there and have it seal the hole, but as soon as he gets up and moving around, that should have just opened back up again. But it's neither here nor there. It's a movie. It's a book. Whatever, right? So,
Yeah.
Did you want to take it from here from the next like basically what he had to do? He had to get back inside and realize that he's been left behind.
So, the book is all about his logs. There is no narrative point of view per se. It's split up into his logs, which you'll see in the movie. He does the video logs and he's talking and all that, but so his other than healing himself, stitching himself back up and figuring out, okay, what do I need to do? Food and water are his first priorities, so he ends up, well, you just see it in the movie. It's like a montage of him dealing with the oxygenator, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not very scientific, so my terminology might be completely wrong, but basically he finds a way to separate the hydrogen and the oxygen, and in a way, with some crazy science experiment, he was able to make water and grow potatoes. In the movie, they leave out how he was able to grow the potatoes. In the book, it describes in detail of how he poops in a bucket and uses that as his fertilizer. I don't know why they completely cut that out, because I thought that was not only important but hilarious.
Well, they do go to that in the movie. He opens up because everyone has to poop into a bag for waste, so it doesn't get left behind. So it shows him opening that up, he put some dirt into a bucket, put some poop in the bucket, and then put some water in the bucket, and then had to stir it up. And he had he had stuff jammed up his nose so he couldn't smell it, and he was still gagging. So that part was still in the film.
Yes, it is it is different in the book because all of his waste goes into that bucket, all of his compost goes into that bucket, and it does actually play a strong role because when he has to take his trip in the rover to Pathfinder, he he saves his waste so he can bring it back and compost it. So I believe to me it was it was a small thing in the movie, and it was a pretty big like I think my biggest guff was that um okay, cut this out because I don't know how far in depth we want to go. I didn't know if you wanted to do scene by scene or if you want me just to say this is the movie, this is how I think, these are all the problems I have with it.
What I have written down here just is Saul 6 accident, inventory and agriculture, which is what you're talking about, making contact, then the iris failure, the airlock disaster, the Rich Purnell maneuver,
Okay.
arrival at Shepaleli. I'm sure I said that wrong. The launch and interception, and the return and the aftermath. Those are the 10 that we'll hit.
Okay.
So we'll just go from inventory and agriculture is pretty much where you left off, right? So then I guess, like you said, making contact after months of isolation, Mark decides to find a way to talk to Earth. He treks to the site of the Pathfinder lander, which was sent in '97. So, by digging it up and sinking it with his rover, he manages to establish rudimentary hexadecimal communication with the link to NASA. So, yeah, we can unpack that one right there. So,
Okay. So, so obviously, to make a movie from a book, you do have to cut out certain things from the book, obviously, for time and for entertainment purposes. But I think the book pretty much wrote the script for the movie because it is all in the point of view of his logs. Besides the fact of, when it goes to NASA and what they're doing, but when it's in Watney's point of view, it's all in the logs, right? So I wish they had a little bit more, maybe even just voiceovers explaining a little bit more of what he's doing, just to make the movie itself more believable, because when I watched the movie, it didn't come off as very believable to me, yet when I read the book, the details of the explanation, like the details, the explanations, the theories behind it, it all made a lot more sense. I found that, so the Mars is very cold, right?
Yep.
And when he was designing the rover to get to Pathfinder, two main issues came: battery life and temperature control. So he solved the first one, which was the battery. The second one was they had, before the disaster, the crew had buried a canister of straight plutonium in the middle of the planet, right? And he had to go get that. And in the book, he actually had to use that plutonium multiple times, especially after the airlock disaster and all that stuff. And it kind of goes on as a running joke about how NASA told me not to touch this, and yet I have to continue to use it to survive.
After months of Mark cultivating the potatoes, getting all that stuff in order, he realized that the only way that he's ever going to get any help or to let anybody know that he's even alive, he's going to have to find a way to get in contact with NASA. And the only way that he could do that, from a while of thinking, all of a sudden it came to him that he could use the rover's systems if he went to, what was that piece called that he had to, the landing module?
Oh,
Pathfinder?
like Pathfinder?
So he had to make it to Pathfinder, and from what I've read and seen in different videos, those two technologies would actually merge together. Not well, but they would merge together. Yep. You got to remember that Pathfinder was from '97. This movie's supposed to take place in 2035. So there's been a lot of time in between. Technology is different, but That was something that NASA was good for, was that they would make things that would last or be able to connect to each other for a long time. Yeah, so from there, that's where he finally gets a signal through, but he doesn't have a way of actually communicating, right? So this is where he comes up with that is it a decimal system or
some
basically
numerical system, because Pathfinder takes pictures
yeah.
and sends them, and NASA can they'll move the camera to point at certain numbers, numerical systems, so they can spell out short forms of words and stuff.
Right, and NASA recreated the exact same system that he had on Mars. So,
yes. Yeah.
That way, obviously, it works back and forth, right? So, okay, so after getting in contact, they now know that he's alive, and now it's NASA's job to figure out how we're going to keep him alive until we can get someone there. So they end up setting up, they're rushing to get a probe that's got supplies to keep him alive for that much longer. They know that they've got, 500 souls, which is solar days, but you can't just say days because the days on Mars are longer. So they finally come up with a system. They know, okay, they've got a small window of error that they have, but it's not much. And unfortunately, back on Mars, that's when Mark has a bit of an incident and he loses his crop. There's a small explosion, and obviously that changes everything. And meanwhile, just like in the film, and that's why we waited until now to say something, the crew that left him behind had no idea that he was still alive, right?
In the book, it's pretty much the same. So,
right.
In terms of summarizing, that's the same.
Well, one of the engineers, or one of the physicists, actually, one of the physicists at NASA comes up with an idea of how they could turn around the ship that left them, because they could use Earth's gravity, slingshot it around, and send that back, and they could do that in a lot less time than it would be to build another ship. So, and they called that the Elron project or something, right?
The Purnell maneuver.
Well, that's the maneuver. Just slingshotting around the Earth is the But the whole idea of sending that ship back was the Elron Council or whatever, and that was the
Lord of the Rings joke, the Elron Council,
yeah. Which is funny because Sean Bean's in it, and he was also in Lord of the Rings, so kind of funny. So yeah, from there the ship makes it back to Mars, and obviously, like at this point, it's been a while. It's been a ton of time, and I was gonna say Matt Damon. Mark has to ration his food even more than what he was already rationing, so he's losing a lot of weight at this point, which I'm surprised he doesn't lose a lot more because of the gravity thing. That's or maybe that would make you gain weight. I'm not sure, because there's only it's like Mars has, I think, 38% the amount of gravity that Earth has.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Getting off on the wrong thing here. So they make their way back, and from there they have a plan. It's not the best plan, but it's a plan. He has to make it back to the other landing module that was sent earlier for the next mission that's supposed to happen in 4 years, and he's supposed to strip it down, and he's supposed to blast off, and they have to catch him, which sounds like a horrible idea, no matter how you look at it. But I guess when the alternative is just to stay there, I guess that's
gotta do what you gotta do.
Sounds like a good plan then.
Yep.
So they have their issues. I thought for sure that the commander of the ship, who goes out in that little chair thing to catch him, I thought for sure she was going to die, and it was just going to be a trade-off, which would have been a shitty way to end the film. But and basically they catch him, then they bring him home, and then they have the whole scene at the very end with him teaching a class at NASA, talking about like the pitfalls and all that stuff. So
yep,
it was actually a pretty good ending.
Yeah, I think they cleaned it up pretty nicely.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think Matt Damon was a perfect guy for this film, but if you had to replace him with somebody, who would it be?
I actually completely disagree with that. I don't think Matt Damon was the right choice at all.
Really?
Yeah, because and that's why. So in the books, both Project Hail Mary and The Martian, in my opinion, the main characters are somewhat comparable. They're sarcastic, they're nerdy, and yet in the movies they're vastly different. Matt Damon, Wani in the novels are a sarcastic nerd who is extremely intelligent. Someone who is more typecasted for the nerd role, so like for example Justin Long, in my opinion, would have even been slightly better. Only like when I was reading it, Matt Damon was the furthest thing I pictured because he doesn't scream sarcastic nerdy scientist, botanist, engineer. So someone who is obviously fit to be an astronaut, but also has that nerdy side to him, in my opinion, would have been someone who would have fit the role a bit better.
And you think that was Justin Long?
Someone like Justin Long. I came up with Justin Long because, in my opinion, he kind of has the voice, but he also kind of he's also a little bit more fit. So yeah, I would probably put him as one of my top choices.
I always think of Justin Long as being a little spastic, but I guess not necessarily because he was in the movie Waiting and he wasn't spastic at all. But yeah, I chose Jason Bateman. I thought he could still play that nerdy role if he has to, but he's got such a dry humor and the sarcasm, like just on like a regular basis when he's not playing anybody, it's just him. He's sarcastic as fuck. So
yeah, I think that's a good choice too.
Yeah, what was your favorite line or lines?
I think one of my favorite lines was, "Now that NASA can communicate with me, they won't shut the hell up." In the movie, it's "they won't shut up," but when I saw it, I giggled both times. I thought it was hilarious. So that was probably I thought that was probably my most memorable line.
Mine was I wrote down two. Mars will come to fear my botany powers. I thought was pretty good, and obviously the other one was, "I'm gonna science the shit out of this." Like
that. Yeah, that was a pretty iconic line.
I did have a lot of issues with different scenes throughout, just with authenticity about how things would actually happen. I don't know how you felt about some of them. Putting that tarp over the end of the whenever he had that accident and he lost his crop, he threw the tarp over the hole in the hab, and then used duct tape, and then they used a strap and tightened it down, and then when they pressurized it held. Every scientist that has a theory or an opinion on this all said that would never happen. That would just blow that, like there'd be so much pressure, it would have just blown that thing right off. So
yes. Yeah. Now I will say duct tape actually makes a lot of appearances in the novel. And Watney praises duct tape and thinks it's this magical cure for most things.
That is one of the fears that they had about this, was that scene where Matt Damon puts the duct tape on his cracked helmet was also in Interstellar, and they were worried that people were gonna make a closer comparison to the two. So I don't think duct tape would hold.
That doesn't happen in the book.
Oh, the duct tape putting on the helmet?
No, doesn't happen.
Does he not crack his helmet?
No, he does. It actually shatters into pieces. And his suit, so what he has to do is he has to cut a piece of his suit off. So I can't fully remember in the movie if it showed that each suit comes with a mini resin repair kit.
No.
Okay,
I don't think it shows that.
So in the novel, each EVA suit has a little repair kit, and it's special grade resin, basically, is what it is. And he has to cut a piece of his arm fabric off, and he has to basically resin it to his helmet to get it fixed because it smashes into pieces. It just doesn't crack. And the duct tape, like, no, until he goes and gets the replacement helmet, because he has like 6 EVA suits from the crew, and then there's an extra one. So then he gets a new helmet, and then he has to resin the wrist piece shut, and then it repressurizes. But yeah, that doesn't, the duct tape over the helmet. It's funny that they were scared it would be compared to Interstellar when they didn't even have to do that, because in the book it doesn't do that. So
Interesting. I know I just said that I don't think the duct tape would work, but I think the duct tape would work better than the
whatever I just read, yeah.
yeah. That just sounded like that would never. I mean, so the temperature on Mars is supposed to be minus 65 is the average, so you wouldn't freeze to death right away, but the air's so thin you'd lose all your oxygen. That's what that's what get you.
He was in the airlock though, so when it blew, when the hab busted, like blew up, I guess you could say, like pressurized to the point where it blew up, he was in the airlock when it happened, so the area around him was pressurized, and it was fine. Like,
okay, so in the movie it wasn't.
No, he was already in his EVA suit, and he was, like, it was cut in half, but he was, and this actually, again, I am not very good with science, but when the airlock door closes, that's what triggered the explosion, and it ripped the airlock right off the hab. So he was in a tiny capsule, which the doors are shut on the other side, so technically it was still pressurized and fine. Obviously he wouldn't be able to survive in it for very long, but for the time being, he was fine. And then he had to figure out basically how to get back to the hab to get replacement pieces for his suit, which was a 4-minute jog. But
Interesting.
Yeah, whereas in the movie, which I always thought that was kind of funny, because in the movie he was already in his EVA suit, and he was like, the hab like blew up or something, and he was basically out in the open. Yeah, I don't know. I found that kind of, yeah, that was a huge difference actually.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how it was in the book, but I mean, it makes sense the way how they would have had that, because you have to have that buffer in between the pressurized part and the non-pressurized part, right? So coming out of the hab, and you're in that little section that you've got the outer door, right? So it's basically that whole tube. So you come out of the hab, you shut the door, you can depressurize it, which I'm assuming that's what the next step would be, and then open up the exterior door so you don't have that blast. But he never got to that point, and that's why that whole outer compartment got launched. So
yeah, but and that's why it still had a door on it. In the movie, it didn't have the door on it.
Oh, right. Well,
so I'm like, where'd the door go?
The door's still attached to the hab. That's where the other side was. There's only 2 doors, right? There's the door that
oh, because I thought, because yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the other issue that I had too is, yes, they do have storms on Mars, but not like that. There would never be a storm strong enough to push their ship over. Like they said, like the max it gets up to is like something like 10 kilometers an hour, and that's not enough to push that over. So I mean, I get without that happening, there is no movie. But the other thing that I didn't understand, and maybe they touched on it and I missed it, or maybe they just didn't say anything in the film, but it's in the book. Why could they not just go back down? Wait for the storm to end and then just go back down the same way that they did the first time?
They kind of describe a little bit in the movie why the oh my god, what's the ship's name? I can't remember.
The Hermes.
Hermes, thank you. In my dumb brain, they can't get back through Mars atmosphere without it destroying the ship, the Hermes. And that's why in the end, like the rescue mission, they can't actually get into like they can't land back down. That's the only thing I know. Do I know why they blasted off and they can't get back down? No, I don't. It could have been in the book, but like I said, there are some parts of the book where I read it and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I don't know anything about science, but I will say like fuel and supplies were a constant issue. Like they didn't
Right.
like the amount of fuel to lift the ship up and then put it back down and then blast off again is probably ridiculous. So I'm going to assume it was fuel and supplies, but I can't say that for
But
certain.
yeah, I'd accept the fact that they probably only had enough fuel for one landing and to take off. Like
Hmm.
the ship that was on the ground, obviously that's not the Hermes, right? The Hermes would have
No.
stayed up in orbit. But I guess it was just because my first instinct was right after they take off, I'm like, can they not just wait and put it back down again once the storm ends? You know what I mean? Like I understand not hanging around because of how much it's pushing the rocket over. Like they said, any more than 12 degrees and it'll just topple. So
Now, from my understanding, Hermes 3 is just a piece of the ship. So when they thought Watney was dead and they took off, it attached to a bigger ship. It was almost like a probe, and then it attached to their main hub because that ship in space is flipping huge. Like when you see the crew, like it's huge. And then it's not until a while that they actually find out Watney's alive. So I'm going to assume they can't just detach Hermes 3 and go back. I'm assuming they can't do that
yeah, I'm not
because they
sure.
don't land the whole ship, right?
No. It's just basically just a rocket. It's
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's just called the MAV, is it not? The Mars Ascending Vehicle, or is it the MDV, the Mars Descending Vehicle?
I don't know. A
Yeah, I don't know
Mav
either.
Mav was constantly talked about, so I'm going to assume it was called the Mav, and then that giant ship in space that like
Yeah,
they
that was definitely the Hermes.
that was the Hermes, but the actual little probe or ship they landed on Mars with, I believe that's the Mav.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, it's probably just a one-way trip. They
Yeah.
only have enough for. There's no point in bringing all this extra fuel with them, right? So,
Yeah.
um, did you have any other issues with anything else in the film?
Believe it or not, the soundtrack.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I actually had a big issue with the soundtrack. Well, okay, I wouldn't say a big issue with the soundtrack, but I think that was probably one of the first issues that came to mind. I think it was a choice. So the book has a very strong theme of like throughout the whole book, and it's because Watney is stuck with only 70s disco music, and that's an ongoing joke because he goes through his crew's personal items, and Lewis is the only one with music, and it's all 70s disco. So that big rescue mission montage where Starman was playing over the top of it. Yes, it was released in 1972. Yes, David Bowie could be considered disco, but that song wasn't mentioned once in the book. The book gave an entire playlist of songs by name that they could have used. So Watney chooses his theme song. Yes, he chooses a theme song. His theme song was Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. They didn't play that. He also, in the book, it's also listed, the book offers many songs like Life on Mars by David Bowie, Rocket Man by Elton John, and Alone Again by Gilbert O'Sullivan. All three are great pieces, and none of them were used. So I was a little shocked that the book made such a point of 70s TV shows and 70s music, and yet they didn't use any of that in the movie. And
It could have been something
but
as simple as licensing issues, right? And
could have
then they just
been,
went they just went their own way.
could have been, um, but I just found it like so. A lot of the lines in the movie were very copy paste from the book. His logs and the way, and yet they change, in my opinion, unnecessary things like the soundtrack, or when Teddy found out that Mitch sent the maneuver plan to the crew behind Teddy's back.
Yep.
Um, Teddy said that in the book. Teddy said that if I ever can prove that it was you, when all this is over, I'm going to find a way to fire you. Whereas in the movie, Teddy says, when this is over, I expect your resignation. I found that that was a very good example of, in the movie, I found that they kind of almost softened Teddy up a little bit, whereas in the book, he's actually kind of a brute. I mean, he's one of the big men at NASA. Like, he's...
Well, he's the director, so...
Yeah, so he's a strict brute in the book, and yet in the movie, it's almost like they softened him up a little bit.
Well, you know why? It's probably because that's what the director would say. I don't think a director would ever say, I'm going to find a way to have you fired. He would just say, I'm going to expect your resignation for what you did. I think that's probably more along the lines of being more realistic, and maybe that's something that NASA said, okay, someone like, especially the director of NASA may have been looking at this going, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe just to try and keep the authenticity there. So.
Yep. So, and I think probably my third and final issue I had was that that big email when the crew first found out that Wani was alive and they were able to send like an email. I'm gonna call it an email. It wasn't an email. It was like a whatever it was, a Facebook message. That in the book didn't happen. They found out he was alive, and they actually had a lot more exchanges than what the movie showed. Like Wani was sending messages to each member of the crew personally and quite often. And when you read those messages, emails, whatever, it gave the crew a lot more personality, because the crew is very secondary in the book, if not on the lowest tier. I mean, you got Watney, but then you also have Teddy, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, starts with a V, and then you have Mitch, like all those people at NASA, they all, like, and then the crew you have at the very bottom. So Andy Weir was like, these emails will kind of give a little bit more insight to who each member of the crew is and give them a bit more of a personality. I found in the movie the crew was absolute nothing burgers, and they fit into extreme stereotypes, and you actually had some decent actors play the crew, and yet to me they have like no personality whatsoever. Very lackluster in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who else they would have had a chance to take a look at, you know, like you're saying, like with the lackluster with the other actors. Channing Tatum was almost up for he was the original pick for the Mark Watney character, but again, doesn't fit the book, right? So,
no. Like I said, they actually had good actors play the crew members. Right. I just found the script writing, and maybe even just the amount of screen time, which I know they can't fully control, but the script more like the script, it was very, they gave the crew very, very stereotypical, very lackluster personalities. Like,
I think that was by design though, because of the way how NASA's people are and the way how they're trained and everything that they go through. That was part of the realism. They don't want somebody jokey. They don't want somebody, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably where NASA stepped in. Like I said, they wrote 50 pages. They probably rewrote Weir's sections of it and said, no, our people wouldn't say that. They wouldn't do that. And they'd probably have to, and they did say that they weren't going to dumb it down, that they wanted to keep it as is, like how it would be in real life. So, and they said people are smart enough nowadays that they're going to get everything and they're going to understand why it's like that. So that could, I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm just saying that could be a reason as to why you're not getting the pizzazz that you might want in a film.
Except
Watney. Lackluster.
Watney's the only one that actually seemed to get like a personality. That's what I'm saying, is like, which he's the star of the show. I mean, you can't make him a blob, right? But I just found everybody else, whether it was NASA or not, they were like, Lewis, she's the commander, and she's going to act like an extremely stereotypical commander.
Right.
You know, and like the tech girl, we're gonna make her extremely tech, and that's it, nothing else. And it's like, okay, yeah, in the book they fit those stereotypes, yes, but the messages that Watney sent to them actually gave a lot more insight to who they were as people, which I wish the movie didn't cut all of those out, because he sent all of them when like he found out he was probably gonna die, like when the hab blew up.
Yep.
And in the book, he actually lost communication completely because he short-circuited the whole hab, and the Pathfinder went dead. So, when he was like, "Oh my God, I'm on my own," like during all of that, he was sending these messages to, or attempting to send these messages, and he was more talking to himself than to the actual crew, but it gave deep insight to who they were as people and a bit more into their personal life, which I appreciated myself. So yeah, the now I can tell you what NASA for sure cut out, if they did cut out anything. And do you remember the first messages that they were able to type out back and forth, like Watney and NASA, where Watney was like, "You didn't tell the crew that I'm alive," and NASA said no, and Watney's like, "Are you effing kidding me?" And Buddy was like, "Okay, the whole world is watching you. Please watch your language." It doesn't show what Watney responded with, but in the book he responded with an emoji of boobs. Fun fact. Fun fact.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like the bracket dot bracket dot bracket, and
Yeah.
he sent that as response in the book, and in the movie you just see people going, "Ah." Yeah, that's a little fun fact for you.
Well, at least that way you can just imagine whatever you want. I
Yeah.
never even thought about something like boobs. I just assumed it was every swear
Swear word in the
you could think
dictionary,
of. Yeah. So that's interesting. Obviously, those are some of the changes that you would have liked, right? I don't know if there's. I think the only change I would have taken was, or would have liked to have seen, was just for time purposes. Like we said before, like that impalement, that was drawn out. I thought it didn't need to be. He could have just been. That wasn't the reason why he couldn't respond. Obviously, he got knocked out, and when he came to, everything had already calmed down, and everything was right. So I mean, he could have just had scrapes, bruises, knocked out, woke up. His suit was damaged just from being hit, right?
Yep.
You could have taken away all that stuff in there. I can understand leaving that stuff in there if it was becoming an issue for later on, but it never goes back to it. I mean, it just seemed like a waste that they even had that part in. So I would have removed that and then done like what you said, add in some of the more personal stuff so that you can see what's going on, right? So if they were being pushed for time, which they quite often are, right? Like the studios want X amount of time. Here's your minimum. Here's your max. So, would you have wanted to see any sort of like post-credit scenes and maybe make a second Martian?
Second Martian, not necessarily. I think the movie ended, like, it cleaned it up pretty well, but if they were to do a post-credit scene, just like a little, it wouldn't technically be an Easter egg, but a little thing, what I would have loved to see for human purposes is the next Mars crew, like, the next space crew going to Mars or whatever, they find all of his logs. Because he left those logs on Mars. And in the movie they said, whoever finds these, blah, 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 and he talks to who's ever next, right? I would have loved to see the crew landing on Mars and this guy finding all of these logs. And in the book, it's more reading than watching, but in the movie, watching them. I think that would be kind of a fun little thing to see.
See, I had a very similar aspect to it, but mine was slightly different. Mine would have been the next mission, them walking into the hab and taking off their helmet and taking off their helmet, going, "Oh, it smells like shit in here."
That would have been good too. No, they just land in the hab. It just has like dead potatoes and dirt everywhere, and it's like blown up. And they see a box of shit, like they just see shit splattered everywhere. That would be hilarious too. But then they find his logs, and then they see, oh, okay, I get it now. That would have been a really, really good post credit. They should merge
Oh.
our two ideas together and do it now.
See, they would have found both logs. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to make you choke there.
Yeah, for sure. That would have
Oh.
been great.
All right. I guess we're at that time, so we'll leave it here. And I look forward to next week doing Project Hail Mary.
Yay!
And we will talk to everybody next time.